A Protestant pastor says that polygamy is biblical and that it was divinely ordained. I've been seeing this all over Twitter today. I don't know if you guys have noticed this at all. What a great story. This guy's not backing down from his claim that he can have multiple wives. Rich Tidewell, a pastor in Canton, Missouri, has sparked an online debate about the acceptance of polygamy in Christianity and whether or not it is biblically justified. He says, I have 2 beautiful wives. To the expected amount of backlash, he recently made an announcement on his Instagram page that his second wife is expecting his 8th child. All right, this is kind of what I was saying earlier, even though obviously we disavow this guy's not talking about real Christianity. There was a time when even the barbarians wanted children. He says, I have 2 beautiful wives, Tidewell wrote in a long entry. We are thrilled for what the Lord has done for our family. All right, so firstly, I don't know what his argument is, but I assume he's actually probably making some version of the argument that the left will often make when we talk about marriage and biblical morality, which is the Bible has polygamy in it. Not everything that the Bible describes is something it's recommending that you do. In fact, a lot of what's described, it's from Trent Horn, a lot of what's described in the Bible is stuff you're not supposed to be doing. It's a cautionary tale.
Or it's just descriptive.
Yeah, exactly. It's just descriptive.
Right.
So to me, this is not all that shocking. It seems shocking because it exists in one direction, but for decades we have been seeing people try to claim that the Bible doesn't actually say what it says about God's plan for marriage, about sexuality, etc. You know, my particular perversion is permissible. I don't know. Who are we to judge, right? We've been told for decades.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's hard for me to care as much anymore. I used to hit this issue hard on polygyny with the multiple wives thing, and you're right, it's not biblical. And it's completely immoral, and it's totally unjustified. But didn't they just marry 4 guys?
It's so
Or didn't they just married 4 guys?
throuple?
Yeah.
4
guys.
We have gay thruples.
Yeah, they just married.
You're just short of a restaurant.
Yeah, who did that? Where was that at? Do you remember?
Oh, it was somewhere in Europe, I think.
Yeah, just married
wasn't
4 guys.
here.
Yeah.
And someone's probably going to sell him a baby.
But the thing is like,
hopefully it doesn't become a daycare
leftist-
center.
Oh, I think it was the UK.
leftist logic can't ground any of this. So leftists can't really tell you that this is immoral. They can't. Because if they make the claim that, well, 3 people getting married is immoral, right? We would just ask them, well, how would you ground that? They would just say the societal consequences are bad. It'd be like, well, I could do that with homosexuality or any number of different things. So that makes no sense as an argument.
Right.
Ultimately, this, right? You're going to see more of it under leftist rule because they're going to have less and less way to combat it with any sort of ground. Like, how could they tell them no?
Yes.
They can't tell them no. If they go to them and say, look, how could this possibly be worse for society than homosexual monkeypox, right? They're not, the argument back's going to be, well, I guess it's not. And you do you, bro, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
My dad called it monkey around pox.
But why we need monogamy more than anything else is because we have an equal distribution of men to women. And you really want to make sure that the underclass is married and having children because otherwise they start killing people in a big way. Collectively, they start killing people because one of the biggest accesses of resources for men isn't the money. And it isn't the sports car, and it isn't that. It's sexual access, and what you get with a wife is sexual access, and that is part of the domestication of men, which allows a society to function. That's why monogamous societies do way better than polygynous societies do because of that sexual access.
No, and it's true, and it's like to varying degrees of wholesomeness, because you can have guys who say, I genuinely just want to have a family, and so they get married, and then there are some guys who they're just trying to have sex, but in a monogamous culture, that drive is oriented towards something productive instead of destructive.
Which is producing.
Yes, producing.
Children.
Literally producing.
Literally, yes.
That's right. And so, I just want to make this point. George Gilder writes about this in his book, Men and Marriage, where he points out, and this is written in like the late 80s, early 90s, I believe. But he points out that literally in every society throughout all of history, the most dangerous people around have been unmarried young men. If you can create a population of perpetually unmarried young
killers.
Men, they're going to be killers. Now, here's the thing. For corporate America, those people make great consumers. And so it seems as if there's been this effort to keep men young and unmarried, but to kind of unicize them so that they're good producers and they're not scary. But that doesn't work. They're still going to be scary, man.
Yeah, but they're not like inherently killers. That's
no,
not what I mean by that.
No, of course.
But what it is it's like, where do you go? You would go into the military, you would become mercenaries, and you would be way more willing to take high-risk things for high reward.
Yes.
Because that's where, like, the dopamine hit comes, the fun. Again, there's no resource sink, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, to
that's
be clear,
why
this isn't like men bad. This is just realistically
no,
men and women
good
have
and
different.
men
women-
benevolent.
Yeah.
Actually, but my point is just to point this out is like. The reason you want your young men married and producing families and you don't want them sidelined with no sexual access is because if you have like 20% of your population that's like that, you're going to have a serious problem on your hands where these people they're not risk averse.
Well, why do you think it's so easy to recruit young Muslim men to terrorist cells?
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna
they
say,
have.
Why do you think it was so easy to
Incels make
recruit?
terror cells.
Well, think about how easy it was to recruit mercenaries under the promise you'd carry off the enemy women. Right? The idea here was always the same. They were plunder once upon a time. And so but ultimately, if you have 20%, 15%, something like this, who are not risk averse and they are high testosterone and not risk averse. Oh man.
Yeah, but also in terms of polygyny, like you look at the Arab cultures, for example, they've got a huge problem with this in the sense that a lot of the top status men get all of the wives, and then it creates this huge underclass of men. And you'll notice that all of the immigrants coming into Europe, there's not many women and children. It's all men. And what that is it's the underclass of men who have no access to women.
Trying to get it.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, so they're coming into these Western countries, and you imagine they're coming into Sweden and they see a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who's wearing a short skirt, and to them, she's essentially a prostitute.
Yes.
Well, and we have been told through various court cases from judges in the EU that they just don't know any better.
I mean, you look at the grooming
It was their
gangs.
culture.
Well, a lot of them are inbred, may not know better, honestly, which is why you probably shouldn't bring them to your country.
65% of Pakistanis.
Yeah, 65% of Pakistan. That's
Pakistanis are
it's
inbred.
outrageous.
But you look at the grooming gangs over there, and they were essentially, their excuse was that, well, in our culture, this is allowed. These are essentially spoils of war here, and they're not Muslims, so they don't get treated the same as us, and that was their justification for it. So it's not like it was frowned upon or anything.
And by the this is stated openly, and when these people have to testify, they'll say things like this. It is not some kind of hidden secret. They openly acknowledge, yes, we do think that this is what white girls are for and white women are for. This is not something somebody made up to make you feel a certain way. This is not the billionaire saying the immigrant wants to take your cookie, like we've seen in that meme. Yeah. This is from their mouths. These are words from their mouths.
Yep, they're sex and relationship starved, destitute people coming from polygynous societies into Western countries. So when you think about the magnitude of it.
And the women are single, right? They're using,
even if they're not, they don't care.
Well, they're often using their child, like kind of their child rearing years to go to college and university, right? Things like this. They don't have a man on their arm. There's nothing to fight the wolves off.
There's no man, and the fathers are told you're a horrible patriarch if you want to protect your daughter.
Toxic,
so it's a nightmare. He's making a great point. Like these are good, solid reasons why monogamy should be the go-to for any Western society. Even if it was the case we didn't believe in God and Christianity, it still should be. Now you and I would say the reason is because you're still moving towards God and Christianity by doing that. But ultimately, from the secular perspective, just the outcome base, it should be that way. But because they have to justify the alternative degeneracy, they have to endorse this.
Yeah.
And that's what your society is going to look like.
Exactly. You were right at the beginning when you said it's because we've accepted this morally relative framework that even Christians, especially, sorry Protestants, but you guys have this idea that everybody has their right to, their individual interpretation. So you can't, that plus the moral relativistic framework, you can't tell this guy no. How are you going to tell him no? And you're letting the Muslims in and they can do it, and you're letting the gay thruples adopt. You can't tell this guy he can't do that.
Just hypothetically, what would stop me from starting a church tomorrow called the Church of Rattlesnake?
Nothing.
I mean, probably nothing. And what is it? What's the number?
You may not be able to
before you're tax exempt.
I think it's only 2 or 3.
Yeah,
it's not many. Low. And the thing is you may not, but you don't even need the 5013C, right?
Yeah.
You can start the Church of Rattlesnake as a for-profit church. Right? I mean,
this is a historical
the
pattern.
other churches with your business model.
Yeah.
This is a historical pattern. If you look at pretty much all of the cults, all of the heretical cults that have tried to spring out of Christianity, it's always some guy who wants to take all the wives.
Yeah.
It's always some guy. It always ends up with,
always an
by the
orgy.
way, you have to
How many
share
times
your
has
wives
Jesus
with me."
returned now to bang your wife?
Well, this is
It's happened a lot, according. I mean, it's happened a ton of times, according to a lot of these people who claim that they're the
They
return
all
of
do
Christ.
it. All of them. They all end up, and they usually start with a different message. They'll start with something that appeals to like people who are easily sucked into cult mentalities. And then by the time you get 20, 30 people, they're like, and you all have to share your wife with me now.
well, this is not just this is not just something that's existed in the Christian world. This has been the case literally with every cult throughout history.
Right.
Even Muhammad, everyone who's claimed to speak for God has basically said, guess what God told me I get to do? It's
Yes.
like, I'm special. This is
My
allowed
buddy
for
Jay
me.
Dyer says that cult leaders, it's always just boils down to being able to touch butts. Basically. It just always boils down to touching butts.
Your wife is mine now.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.